Welcome to the Big Texas Podcast, presented by Texas Young Republicans. I am your host, Jordan Overturf, bringing to you episode 3 and what will be the first in a long line of candidates coming to be interviewed at the Big Texas Podcast. By the Big Texas Podcast, I'm not really sure the right way to phrase that. But in any case, we have a candidate for you today. But first, before we get to that, as always, we have a little bit of housekeeping for you voters in the Houston and Fort Worth areas. There's a special election runoff on January 28th. Early voting starts January 21st. And HD 28 and HD 148. Now, Gary Gates is the Republican running against a Beto-backed candidate, Liz Markowitz, in HD 28. Over in HD 148, Louis LaRota, our very first podcast guest, is running to become the first Republican representative from House District 148. If you are a young Republican volunteering on these or any other campaigns, really, you need to go to victory.texasyr.gop to log your campaign activities. Each quarter, the YR chapter at the top of the leaderboard, Texans for Greg Abbott, is going to sponsor a happy hour event for your chapter. So right now, Bexar County is just whooping tail, but I don't know. I saw a lot of candidates out there. I know the Houston Young Republicans were out for Louis LaRota today, so we know you guys are out there. You're working. We wanted to be able to try and give you guys a reward for all this effort. So get your chapters active. Make sure you get your activities logged at victory.texasyr.gop. Now, on to other business. Our guest today is David Fegan, and before I get to him and his race, I want to just make sure we have a little truth, a little honesty, breaking the fourth wall here, talking directly to you, the listener. This podcast is not an endorsement for the candidates who are our guests. It serves as a platform for them to be able to talk about their ideas, their policy, their messaging, whatever they are talking to voters about on the campaign trail. We hope they bring that message in and talk to us about that. But this is by no means a endorsement of their campaigns. Louis was different because he actually is endorsed by Texas Young Republicans for that race in HD 148. But henceforth, all the way through the primary, and if there are any primary runoffs, YRs will be addressing the endorsement process on its own. If we have announcements about that, I'll be sure to get that out. But for now, just so we're clear, making it known to all the candidates and supporters out there. If you have a candidate who's out there running and they would like to come on the podcast, you can reach out to us via Twitter or Instagram at Big Texas Podcast, or message us on the Texas Young Republican Facebook page. I want to talk to as many people as possible. We want this to be a great place for candidates to come, for voters to listen about the candidates who are out there trying to get their votes. So my guest today for episode 3, David Fegan, a very young Republican running in Congressional District 24 to replace Kenny Marchant. Now, it's a 5-way race on the Republican side to represent that district, which literally stretches from Dallas to Fort Worth, a true DFW representative. On the Dem side, there are 7 candidates lined up, including the failed ag commissioner candidate Kim Olson. She was about 5 points shy of overtaking the state's most vocal Trump supporter and Commissioner Sid Miller. She's another of these Dems who failed and is taking another swing at it. Now, why are Olson and 6 other Dems lined up in CD 24? Well, it's because in 2018, they sat back and watched as a Democrat nominee came within 3 points of unseating a third-term incumbent. So CD 24 goes on the list of targeted seats by Democrats this cycle. Now, David bills himself as a community activist, and he already had his own plans of unseating the four-term incumbent before Representative Marchant announced his retirement. And now he finds himself in a pretty heated primary battle with some, contenders who are already gaining a little bit of national attention. But David certainly stands out as a Republican who walks the walk, talks the talk. He believes what he believes. He has his convictions, and he lays them out here. And I'll be real interested to see what the response is to some of the other congressmen out there that he calls out and some of their policies. But for now, I'm grateful for David being here and talking to us and talking to you, really. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, David Fegan. On New Year's Day, does your family have any New Year's traditions or superstitions, anything like that, you do to get yourself ready for the year?
Yeah. Well, I feel like with most Americans, we like to do the, I'm going to lose weight this year kind of a thing, but not really too much. I had a wedding last night I went to. I saw my friend get married at New Year's. Super awesome. And I was a little freaking out. I'm like happy-ish because I'm like really happy, because 2020 is here. And I just love the four numbers 2020. It's just, I'm very excited about this upcoming year and what we're going to do to fix the system, all the growth we're going to see, and so much change. So.
Yeah, I mean, you're a young guy. I know for me, I couldn't think much further past 18, 21. Those were the years. 2020 was not one that I thought about often. Now that we're here, what surprises you most, I guess, about the state of our culture, of our society? Do you think where you thought we were going to be when we were kids?
Well, I remember when I was in like elementary, so not that far ago, but I was in elementary, and my school came out with something saying, looking forward to 2020. And I was like, 2020? It's like, are we looking to like almost like future-ish kind of age kind of thing?
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking that ahead then, but earlier in my life, once I got into college and all that stuff, I saw how horrific things are going in our country, that I was like, if I don't wake up and if everyone else doesn't wake up, then nothing's going to get done. My grandchildren are going to be dealing with what I'm dealing with right now. So kind-ish, I want to say I was. And definitely the past couple years, I've been very knowledgeable what's going on. And especially our culture. We have like 30 different genders now. And
yeah.
And abortion is a normal topic. I could walk in and be like, hey, my girlfriend got an abortion today. Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry. How much did it cost? And it's such a norm now. And that's just the most horrific thing I've ever heard.
Well, and so you grew up in Colleyville, right? You grew up in this district. I mean, has it changed much from when you were a kid? What about it? What about this district, I guess, is kind of exciting to see the growth and change about?
So I'm in real estate, so I love talking about the economy, the growth, and property value and everything. And sorry about that. So there's actually been a lot of change. I grew up in Colleyville my whole life, and I've loved it here. I know the mayor really well, city council, and there's been a lot of different changes, like growth in the economy, like South Lake, Texas. It just boomed the past 10, 15 years. It used to be this farming town, and now it's like one of the richest cities in Texas. I think that's incredible. Grapevine, Texas is blowing up. Colleyville is staying consistently on a growth pattern that I like, and a lot of citizens of Colleyville love, because they want to keep it that farmy feel, but also they want their property value to grow so they can make more money. So it's a consistent trend. There's some surprises left and right, but we have an HEB, so everything's great now.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. I'm going to have to track that down.
Oh, sorry, not in Colleyville, but near us, yeah.
Look, anywhere in the North Texas region, that is growth for this area. I'm showing my Houston roots there. Yeah. The thing about the 24th is it is the true DFW district, right? You span from Dallas, a little bit of Denton up there, all the way over to the Tarrant County side. How do you kind of reach all these different communities? How do you get on their level when there's so many different communities that make up this district?
I mean, that's a great point. I think the best way I do it is because I've lived here in like Grapevine, Texas. I used to hang out in South Lake, Texas, was like my go-to to watch movies, see friends. Colleyville, home, and then in Hearst, Bedford, Euless. this is where I did all my work. I invested in properties, from redoing houses, redoing buildings, to everything. And then you go into Irving, I'm not that strong in, but I love Las Colinas, one of the coolest areas, I think. And the Colony, I have a lot of great friends up there. And my partners and investors are all over my district. So I know the district really well. And I know where the key strongholds are to attack and kind of like figure out what those people want. And I think it's very apparent what we want. We want strong immigration. We want fiscal responsibility and stop taking our money. So the district's awesome how it's laid out, because it's literally the middle. It's like you take all of DFW Airport and you go all the way to Love Field and stop. So I don't go into Keller, which is that one line, which is great because I know nothing about Keller. So it goes over there to Dallas, family over there. So it's, if I could draw a map, it would probably be this whole entire district, because this is all the places I love. All the people I know are all throughout this district, and it's just about connecting with them. So.
Yeah. So how are you doing that? Are you doing a lot of block walking, phone banking? What are you doing to get out and reach voters?
So it has to break down to analysis of each of the areas, because everywhere is not the same. And if I do a like kind of a blanket of all the area of just block walking, phone calls, handing out stuff, it won't work in some places. It will work in some. So it's kind of about doing that data beforehand. And we did testing in certain areas to figure out which places love block walking, which ones don't love it. And so some areas we focus on that we do a lot of block walking. Some we just go into, like South Lake, Texas. We go to that town square area, we hand out stuff, talk to people, engage them, because those are the kind of people where if you bang on their door, they get really pissed off. If you call them during like working hours, they get really pissed off. And I completely understand. And also they're all rich, so they got like gates, so it's like hard to jump over the gates and stuff. Yeah. So it's more about just doing that, and then strategically using analytics online. Analytics is like gold. And if you ask any political campaign currently, they don't usually talk about it, but it's their little golden egg to engage people, get them to know who you are. Okay. Yeah.
So you seem to really love data, digging in, drilling down. Do you think that that's gonna easily carry over when you get to Congress? And it's time to start rolling up sleeves.
Because we're in such an age right now where people are caring less about politics, and but they still want their voice heard. So with data and with the internet and all this great stuff we're seeing, we can figure out what people want by them telling us, and throughout like statistics and analysis, so we can actually represent their voice in Congress. So it makes it so much easier, and it allows me to spend more time with my people. So I can have my people in DC while I'm here in Texas, just learning what my people want, having events for them. So it's true representing, like it was meant to be by the founding fathers, which I love. So I don't have to stay in DC in the swamp all the time. I can get stuff done like while I'm in Texas. So
there you go. Earlier you mentioned, immigration, fiscal responsibility. As you're out there talking to voters, what are those key issues that they're really honing in on?
So we're paying for like almost like a Netflix subscription for the government. And it's a forceful one, and they're screwing it up. Like with immigration, I could be walking down the street and I could probably, walk across about 20 different people. And I don't know if they're legal, illegal, if they're even like, I don't know what's going on with them. They could be gangsters who just killed like 90 people in Mexico, came up to the States. They're just scared. We're all scared because we don't know who's near us, and they're taking our guns away. And the people who are coming in have guns, they have drugs, they have money, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's the big thing, is immigration. We need to stop it. We need to figure it out. And yes, a lot of people want to deport people really quick, but we tried that. We tried to deport everyone once, and we started deporting legal immigrants who were in the States, and that was horrific. So I feel like there needs to be a new possible method at doing this. I want to like check and see, hey, if you're legal, who are you? And then kind of give them like a number. So like, it's kind of like a visa, but not really. So we can help them become a citizen, but also know like, hey, if you committed any crimes, you're not getting back in here, kind of a thing. And then fiscal responsibility, like the office building we're in right now. It took us time to buy it, fix it up, fill it up with tenants, make some money on it. But once we sell this, I might be making a really good profit, but almost half of that gets taken away by the government, which is just crazy. That seems like socialism to me. Like, you're taking half my money because you need it for what? And then they take so much money, but they can't keep a budget. Like, we're burning through money left and right. Like, are you kidding me? Like most of my friends know how to do a budget, and they just graduated college. Like, how can the government not understand it? Like, we have a budget. We know how much money we're probably going to bring in. So why not spend less than what the budget says? So.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think many people understand that the way the U.S. government kind of operates is, instead of, fixing finances, cutting spending, things that normal Americans would do to keep their home budgets in line, they say, well, we're just going to get another credit card, we don't need to worry about all these other credit cards we've already got. That's fine. We're going to get a new credit card and we'll spend that one, and then we'll see what we do from there. Yeah. I'm guessing get another credit card. So, what do you think we could do to break ourselves away from the bank of the world? I mean, immigration is only the start of it. And do you think that right now the country's headed in a good direction with the policy changes we've seen these last 3 years?
I think, as you probably know, I think we all know, there needs to be a complete halt. My family, like my parents, are very financially responsible. They actually guide people in how to spend money correctly who are in credit card debt, all that kind of stuff. The big thing is to look in the here and the now. Understand what you need to cut and what needs to be done to ensure that you can be debt-free soon. So that might be taking, shutting down the government for 200 days, something like radical like that. I'm almost like with California, like if some other country wants to buy it, or if we want to sell it to Rhode Island or something so they can be bigger, on the other sides. But the spending needs to stop. Like for Texas, we're doing a great job. For every dollar we send off to the federal government, we only get 85 cents back in actual federal money or stuff they do for us, which, I mean, that's good. They need the money really bad, but I still want some of that money back. But in California, every dollar they send, they get $2.50 back. And I think that's just outrageous. Stop them right now, because even though right now we don't have sanctuary cities in Texas, and we're not paying for all this free healthcare, all this free stuff, we're paying for California to be able to do that, even though we're not living there and we have no say in it, because we're pretty much paying their debts off in a way. And I think that we just need to stop real quick. And that's something I'm going to be fighting for. And that's why I'm going to Congress, because it's all about the finances. It's what can we afford? What can we not afford? Do we really need to be giving away free cell phones and all this other stuff? I understand some people want it. They don't need it.
Yeah.
Why give it to them if we're more bankrupt than anyone ever?
But part of that is a decision by the legislatures themselves individually. I mean, California freely accepts every federal dollar that is doled out, right? In Texas, we have a different model. We don't accept as much federal money. We do try and do more to focus on the funds that we can raise here ourselves. Our economy is strong. How would you go to DC and convince these other representatives that, hey, maybe your state is the reason that this deficit keeps going the way it is?
So kind of like with California, they play it's really smart how they do their whole entire system. Especially with say environmental things, with their cars, they're literally getting different cars made for just California than Texas. And it's just crazy because the government loves that. They give them more money. And once they get to that point where they're in a deficit, the federal government wants to help them out more. So I would go to the other representatives who are probably not in California. I mean, even though our minority leader is from California, I would go and talk to them about it and show them the information. We need to stop. We need to shock one of these states and figure out what we're doing wrong. Someone needs to audit all of California and be hey, let's say we have $50 billion to spend in California. How are we going to do that? What do we need to cut? Because they're kind of just screwing everyone else in the country. So it's going to take a lot of work, and a lot like what you do. You help let a representative have more time to go and talk to the other representatives. And I feel like it's connecting, figuring out what needs to be done, and allowing for us to have a better future because of this. Because I'm going to bring more money back to Texas, because I don't want to be paying more money to the federal government than actually getting back, because I don't think that's right. And but also fighting to make sure that states stop spending so much.
So do you think at least Texas, should at least do a dollar for dollar trade? Would you recommend to the legislature figure out a way that, find a program where we can at least be getting as much as we're giving out?
Well, that's a touchy subject. Yes, but no, because when you're getting money, there's always strings attached everywhere.
Yeah.
And if they're going to give us more grant money, more services, they're going to want something in return. And that's just going to be more policies we're going to have to go through. And it's just going to lead to just terrible things. But I want to fight to ensure that we get education grants, to ensure that we have better schools, fight for things, and then try and cut those strings. It's like they don't need to be there. I don't want to follow all the federal government's rules because they're getting too powerful. And when they have the money, they can control whoever they want. So that's why I want to fight to stop that, because we were not meant to do that. And the federal government was not meant to have that place. So kind of yes and no.
So switching gears a little bit, this district is one of several that is going to have new representation. Last cycle, we had, new representation come in with Dan Crenshaw, Lance Gooden up in this area, Van Taylor. Have you been trying to talk to them at all to find out, how their first terms went, what they learned in this process that maybe will help you as you, go on this quest?
So not technically in this district. I went up to Jody Arrington in Lubbock, Texas.
Okay.
That kind of West Texas area. Talked to him a lot about it, and some other congressmen, and I'm good friends with Kenny Marchant. He can shed some light onto what I'm getting into because he represents this area. So, yes, and I kind of want to get mentored by Van Taylor. I love the guy. I think he's doing a great job. Not a big fan of Dan Crenshaw. The whole red flag law is something that's just really upsetting me. So there's some and there's some not, but I think it's most important to connect to the people. And I feel like kind of readjusting the gears when I go into Congress compared to other congressmen might be a refreshing kind of look into all of the stuff I'm going to have to do in Congress.
Well, you brought up red flag laws, and, we are still days away while we're recording this from the unfortunate shooting in White Settlement. As someone who is looking to serve this area, if you were the current representative, what would your response be to this horrific attack?
Wow, my heart goes out to all of them, and I feel so sorry that it happened, but we saw why we have gun laws and why they're in place. And because someone came in, wasn't supposed to have a gun, and shot up the place. But we saw other people who did have guns pull their guns out and then fire back. Because that guy who illegally had a gun, he's going to find a gun anywhere. It doesn't matter if they're a pawn shop selling it or if the cartel has to sell to him. He's going to find a gun. If you want something, you'll find it. It's impossible to stop it. They still have guns in England, and they banned that forever ago. So I love what I saw, but it was so sad because Americans standing up for other Americans and pulling your guns out. I have guns everywhere. I think that's one of the most important things, is to exercise your rights in that. But the red flag law is it would screw me a lot, I'd have to say, because I have an older brother who's a huge Democrat, just credible Democrat. And my whole family loves guns. I carry almost everywhere I go. And if the red flag law got enacted, we would get all our guns taken away, because he would easily call up the police and be like, hey, I don't think they're stable. I don't think they should have guns. Let's take their guns away. Yeah. And he has no education in mental health or anything like that. And all my guns just got taken away. And that's why I'm really upset with Dan Crenshaw, because he comes in as this strong Second Amendment rights guy, and then he comes by and just slaps us all in the face, and he's like, hey, here's this horrific law that's going to steal all your guns because a family member said that you shouldn't have them. And I don't know, it's just someone we backed really strong in the Republican Party, and then came back and just slapped us.
Well, and it was state law that allowed for those parishioners to be carrying and be able to defend themselves and their fellow parishioners. Are you open to trying to propose, a nationwide law that allows for the Texas model to be spread across the U.S.?
Yes, we need constitutional carry really bad. The cool thing is, did you know that was a commissioner that actually killed the guy?
He's a candidate.
Yeah, he's a candidate. I mean, he won pretty much. I mean, you show that in any rally that he has.
Well, I think State Rep Mike Lang might have a thing or two to say about that, who's also in that race. Maybe we can get maybe we can get Representative Lang and Mr. Wilson on this podcast for a back and forth debate on that race.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
but
cool.
So clearly this district pro Second Amendment, but things are starting to change. The dynamic of Texas politics is always changing. As a young person, you know, what is your message to other young people who are either swing voters or they lean Democrat? You know, they not necessarily buying into the socialism and things like that, but what is your message to them about why you're Republican and why you think they would want to be part of the Republican Party, this conservative movement that is standing up for Americans? What is your message to these young folks?
Well, I love how you said it's kind of that changing Texas demographics with that Beto cancer that's still here. And I want to call my campaign kind of like the Fegan effect instead of the Beto effect. It sounds better. But my whole thing is to kind of wake up. It's like when people get upset because you hear Donald Trump or you hear Republican or guns or something like that, they're just trying to scare you. It's just scare tactics. So it's kind of wake up, listen to what the legislation says, listen to what your representatives say, and try and understand it. Listen to both sides. Every morning I listen to BBC, I listen to CNBC, I listen to a different podcast, like Republican, Democrat, Independent, even Libertarian, so I can see every perspective. Because if you can do that, you can argue anything, and you can understand their point of view, so that you can look at it through a bipartisan view. So I just say wake up. And if you're a strong Republican young person, you are the best thing ever because you scare the crap out of the Democrats. Because I go into an area, and I tell them I'm a strong Republican and I'm young. They're like, oh man, what did we start up? Like, I thought young people only go with Democrats. So everywhere I go, it's awesome because Democrats trying to argue with me. And I always tell them, I'll convince you to be Republican in about 5 minutes. And you just go through the ideas that they're trying to portray. They're like, so do you like this? Okay, no. Do you like this? And you just set it up. So just talk about it. Understand your beliefs. Just grab some dinner with some Democrats, some Republicans, and talk to them about what they believe in and stuff like that. So just be more educated.
So one area where we're seeing more bipartisanship grow is in criminal justice reform. This is an area that young Republicans are supporting wholeheartedly at the state and federal level. We've got a bail reform measure coming up on the primary ballot. I'm curious for you, where do you stand on criminal justice reform? Where do you see growth in areas where we can actually make improvements?
Can I bring up that one subject that we said we wouldn't talk about?
Yeah.
Okay. With marijuana. Okay. That's one of the big talking points. And every young person comes up to me and says, you want to legalize marijuana, right? I told them the exact opposite. I want to enforce our laws, but even stricter. I want to put people who are in prison because of it, make them stay there. Because even though weed is really not bad, like I've never smoked it, and a lot of my friends have never smoked it because we don't want to break the law. It's not that bad, but when you go and smoke it, and that 1 ounce pretty much symbolizes like half of a person's life that died to get that ounce of weed here. And that could have been Americans, that could have been Mexicans, it could have been Guatemalans. It's just bad to do it because the cartels bring it to us. And I want to enforce our laws. I want them to be stricter, and I want to allow for people who have done crimes to stay in prison, not to make it easier for them because they committed a crime, make them stay there. But also, I wanted to introduce a bill. I work with a lot of different pastors who work in prison ministry, and they're helping me actually write a bill right now to do with second way homes, where people who were in prison, so they can come out and they can readapt to society, because prison is nothing like a normal society, and it allows them to get a normal job, pay for their rent, but also be monitored to make sure they don't have guns, drugs, and that kind of stuff, to readapt them to society. And especially with mental illness. Mental illness is one of the biggest problems we're facing right now, because we used to have insane asylums, horrific. But now our new way of fixing mental illness is hopefully they commit a crime and then throw them in jail for a long time. And then when they get out, They go and commit a crime in a week, and then we throw them back in for the rest of their life, and then we pay for that every single year. We're paying for them to eat, sleep, all that kind of stuff. And then they're also pretty much like caged dogs because they don't know what they're doing. They can't understand it, and there's no help for them. So that's why those second way homes would at least allow them to have somewhat of a life while they're monitored to make sure they don't have guns, drugs, or any of the other stuff. And then they pay for their rent. So it's not like the state's paying for it. It's like something to monitor the people. And then when they're ready to go into normal society, they'll be ready to connect with other people, get the job that they wanted, get the education they wanted, so they can be normal tax-paying citizens.
I think kind of the argument, though, is that, especially with marijuana possession, that it's such a low-level offense that even at the state level, you have, changes being made, or at least attempts at it. At the federal level, a House committee has passed legislation to legalize marijuana. I doubt it's going to get much further than that. But it seems that the idea around criminal justice reform is not so much to, stick to the enforcement of the laws. I don't think anyone is arguing that we don't enforce. However, I think the discussion is this enforcement actually doing good for our society for these low-level possession charges? Also, what is it doing to these people and their ability to come back into society? Ban the box reform is something that's been around for a while. It's certainly controversial, and the question comes, where does a business owner's rights, to protect their business and their customers and their other employees kind of supersede our need to be able to give people who truly want it a second chance to be those members of society. Do you feel like that needs to be the discussion on how we are enforcing? I mean, you're certainly talking about transitioning and improving that experience, but do you think there is any room in terms of the punishment level for these crimes?
Well, my whole view on it is I'm into sales. I love sales. And if I wanted to sell you my phone compared to a Coke, it would be the exact same thing. You're not selling, you're selling yourself, not the product, kind of a thing. And I view that as the same as committing a crime. If that's weed or if it's heroin, it's still a crime. And even though the product that they're using is not that bad, I say that if they're going to commit a crime, make them pay the punishment. Because if we're going to relax the laws more and more and more, other crimes will seem less horrific. We're pushing that envelope. It's almost like with abortion. It's I'm very strong on anti-abortion. There's literally zero case in my mind for it to be legalized. But all they had to do was open the door a little, and then they opened it more, and then push it back and push it back and push it back. And I almost guarantee you, we're going to see a change. Texas, weed will be legalized in the next 20 years because it will be nationally. And we're going to see in the next 50 years, almost all drugs are going to be legalized at that point. It's going to be such a rapid transition because once one doesn't seem that bad, the rest don't. And a lot of libertarians will love that because, they just want to take it off. But there's going to be a change in our society. And that's why it matters right now who you're picking, who's going to fight for you in the legislation. Because if we're going off current right now statistics, that's not great because we pretty much have establishment everywhere. But if you're going to have someone who's going to long-term fight for what you want and to ensure that all the drugs don't get legalized, to ensure that you pay the right amount of taxes, the government fights for you, you got to pick now. Because if you're going to pick when it's the last minute, when everything's horrific, it's going to be impossible to change. Right now, there's a possibility.
Well, and the argument that that is the direction that some want to take it is not unfounded. Oakland is probably the most lax in terms of legalizing substances. I don't know as far as the other states where they have legalized recreation, whether or not they've grown that. But getting back to your point about sales, as we wrap up here, what's your final pitch to people? What is your message, David Fegan, for Congress? What is your pitch to people?
So my whole thing is I'm a community, they say I'm a community activist, not really ish, but I've worked with a lot of nonprofits. I help people learn English as a second language. I speak Arabic and Spanish. and obviously English too. So those are the three major languages in Texas right now. And a lot of immigrants are coming into the States. And it's important to have a leader who can connect with those voters because they're going to be voting very soon. Like the first generations usually don't vote, second generations do. So if we do not connect with them in the Republican Party, there will be no more Republican Party in Texas because over the next 20 years, the normal Republican vote will be the minority. So that's why I'm saying stand up right now. I've served the community. I know what y'all want. Fiscal responsibility, but also know that the government is run almost like a business. I'm a businessman, and I've been in business for about 8 to 10 years, working in real estate, investing, and don't vote for someone who's supposed to be a political person. Vote for someone because you know they'll get the job done. Because I've never worked a job in my life where if I didn't get the job done, and then if I don't get it done, I get it fired. I mean, that kind of thing. It's just like, fire me. I don't work out. But also, like, you've seen my record. Everyone's seen my record. And they've seen the people, like police chiefs, local leaders who are endorsing me, who are coming out and speaking with me. Because they know me, and they know my heart, and they know I'll fight for the right things. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to find you on social media, website, where's the best place for people to reach out and volunteer?
All right. So Fegan for Congress, and that's F like Frank, EGAN. I always say David Fegan, like Ronald Reagan. You can go there. Social media handle is like DC, like District of Columbia, and then Fegan. So you can find me everywhere. And if you live in the DFW area, I guarantee you'll be seeing many signs and many advertisements. So just click on that, take you straight to my website.
Excellent, David. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody, that's the end of episode 3. Thank you so much to David Fegan for joining us on New Year's Day. He sat down with us on New Year's Day and then went out and checked on his block walkers, went out talking to voters. He's young. He's got the energy. He's ready to get out there and get after it. If you want to find David on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you can follow him at DC Fegan or go to his website, Fegan for Congress. If you want to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Big Texas Podcast, you can also listen to us on TexasYR.GOP. Follow the Texas YR Facebook page and make sure that you subscribe. iTunes, Spotify, Anchor, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. It's everywhere. The podcast is now as broad as I think I can make it. If we have missed the mark, let me know and I'll get it there too. I'll figure it out. But thank you so much to everyone who's been listening. We look forward to talking to more candidates in the next coming weeks. Again, March 3rd, primary is right around the corner. So if you're a candidate, it's time to get to work. Until then, we'll see you down the road.